want to turn to the audience because we have some of those developers and users here with questions. Let's see, I believe we've got the mic. Alyssa has the mic, so we've got a question up here we'll start with.
Thank you. What do you think about Android entering the wearable technology? Do you think the same trend, what happened with BlackBerry, there was proprietary operating systems and then kind of, iOS and Android kind of dominating the smartphone space. Do you see the same thing happening in the wearable technology?
I think that Google's Wear platform is definitely one of the more credible competitors we've had over the 6 years that we've been doing this. There have been a large number. There's been Samsung, LG, Sony, Prada even came out with a smartwatch. So the idea of competitors in the space is nothing particularly new. Obviously, this is Google's first attempt at a smartwatch, and we're paying close attention to what they do. Obviously, we downloaded the Wear SDK and tried it out. It's interesting. I think it definitely provides like a different vision for wearables than the one that we're going down, where we think of it more as like an open platform that people can hack on and kind of make their own. I think they're proceeding with a little bit more of a closed idea. I think that's kind of a reaction to where Android's gone. Like you think that Android is this amazing open platform, but in reality, Samsung and Amazon have forked Android and kind of like taking Google out of the picture. I think they're with Android Wear reacting against that. The idea that they've lost control in some ways of Android and they're a little bit unhappy, and I think they're going to kind of lurch back to the other way with Android Wear and really try to regain that control.
All right, and then we've got a question in the fourth row.
Hi, now that you're going more mainstream with Target, what's your marketing and advertising strategy? Are you going to continue to try to go viral? Are you going to spend money on media blitzes or look for partners to do it?
That's a good question. We've been kind of lucky, quite lucky so far, partially through, I think, a product that has a couple, quite simple and compelling reasons why people could buy it. That's helped us immensely. One of the biggest lessons that I ever learned in the kind of marketing space, and granted, I'm not the best marketer or anything like that, but Paul Buchheit wrote a blog post that talks about the three things, talks about how, as a startup making a product, you should focus on building something that you could describe in 3 easy statements. And that stuck with me. I think that our Kickstarter video on the page, one of the reasons why it was successful is because we stuck to that rule of like 3 things: notifications, sports and fitness, and customization, and just kind of like stuck to that and pitched that over and over again, and that worked. We're working to see what those next three things for that next generation of consumer will look like. But one of the things that we have on our side is, over 400,000 really engaged users who are telling us on a daily basis what they do with the product, what apps come out, which apps in the Pebble ecosystem go viral. Like when Tiny Birds, which is a Flappy Bird clone for Pebble, was launched, within like a week there were 20,000 downloads of it. And that was interesting. And I think little things like that. We actually do most of our business on our website, actually, which makes it much more easy for us to manage that marketing effort by running ads up or figuring out what causes people to buy Pebble that week.
We have a question from Twitter. Quinn Wageman wants to know, how critical is the integration of cellular chips into smartwatches? Is that going to happen? Does that need to happen?
So it's already happened. There are quite a few wearables that you probably haven't heard of that include cell phone chips in watches. It may happen more in earnest in the future when the power consumption comes down. But right now, the fact of the matter is that an LTE radio that you need does draw quite a bit of power. It's not to say that it's never going to happen. I think that I would never say something's not going to happen, because that hasn't proved to be too successful in the past for a lot of people. I think that right now Pebble works really well in this kind of asynchronous mode where when it's not connected to your phone, it lets you run some fitness tracker apps, like there's a swimming tracker app where you can go swimming and it uses the accelerometer Pebble to track the number of strokes and every time you do a flip. And then when you walk back to the locker room, it reconnects to your phone, uploads that data to the internet, gets crunched in the cloud, it comes back. And so I think what we're walking, and kind of to differentiate us from some of the other platforms, is this really interesting vision of a computing platform that can work separate from the internet, but then when it gets back in connection, it kind of spools internet information back up to the net to work with apps that run in the cloud. So I think it's the best of both worlds. That having been said, yeah, I wouldn't say no to things forever. It's just at the current point, this is what we're doing.
Great, and then I see a question back there.
Yeah. So on a platform level, where do you guys see native apps kind of stopping and really focusing, letting third parties kind of own part of it? Or do you guys see that you'll, like Microsoft, continue to take it all over eventually, or what?
It's a good question. Actually,
Let me just repeat the question. Do you see native apps taking over?
And like first-party native apps.
Yeah.
So we're a small team. We only have around 80 people at the company right now, which is a hell of a lot more than last year, which is really cool. But still, like, very early. And I think one of the testaments to what an open platform does is in the 2 months since the App Store launched, there's over 2,400 apps on the App Store. And there's no way that we could have built that. No, we do our part, I think, by building a strong platform that developers can build on top of. We're not saying no, again, to building first-party apps, but I think we've got our work cut out for us creating a strong platform that's useful out of the box, that can just get better as more and more people hack and build on top of the platform. You know, one of the questions that we haven't answered is how does incentivization work on the Pebble platform for third-party developers? Over time, you'll see us roll some stuff out. You know, right now there's some people that are hacking their way through. They either sell a companion app on iPhone or Android that works with a Pebble app, or some people receive Bitcoin donations right through their Pebble app. But it's a good question. I think over time, native apps from third parties will probably become more and more important part of the Pebble ecosystem.
Let's see, and then we'll take another question from Twitter. Have you entertained an acquisition offer from Apple?
I can't comment on any acquisition talks or anything like that. But I mean, what I can say about that is, I don't think they can acquire us. I mean, they don't really acquire products. They acquire services and products that they can later integrate into their systems.
And small teams.
And small teams, like that. So, I mean, but in terms of acquisitions, I think our goal as a company is very much, I mean, unfulfilled. Like I said at the beginning, some early success, but our vision has a long way before it gets played out. Our vision of a platform that people can hack on and wear and use kind of on a daily basis. We've got a hell of a lot of work to do, and we're not going to stop until we get it done. And that's kind of the unifying factor with people at Pebble is that, you know, it's almost like something we take for granted that we're the ones that get to design the future of wearable computing. I mean, there's some teams within other companies, but I think I get the feeling that they're probably stymied quite a bit by the bureaucracy and, you know, are we going to compete with our own products? I've never actually had the chance to work with a large company, so maybe that's also it. But I feel like we have, it's like our opportunity to take right now.
And I see we have a question up here. If you can just wait until Alyssa brings the mic. And then I think we've got time.
I've got a question. How many people work at hardware startups? That's awesome.
Good number of hardware hackers.
That's pretty cool.
Right on. Yes, ma'am. Your question.
I have two questions. At the CES, you had discussed with lots of big manufacturers such as European car companies. Can you tell us about, Pebble and big companies' cooperation? And second question is that, can you talk about, maybe too early because you said 80 people working for you, but international market, because I am writing for Japanese market or Japanese people.
They're both really good questions. First question was about working with larger companies, and we've started to do that. It was something that we didn't do at the beginning because we had the goal of getting our units out of our Kickstarter backers, and that was kind of like the only thing that we could really deal with until we did that. Mm-hmm. Since then, we started kind of like, it's an open platform. So for example, the Mercedes app that they wrote for Pebble, we didn't really know that they wrote it until they emailed us and said, hey, we're these developers that work for Mercedes. We wrote an app that works with Pebble. Would you guys be interested in like trying it out? And we said, yeah, that actually would be pretty cool. And so we started working with them, and Miriam, our product evangelist, actually got the chance to like drive Mercedes around for a while using the app, which was really cool. There's a number of larger companies that have started working with us, GoPro, Foursquare, iControl. It's fun. It's great to see the idea that we started with quite a few years ago take hold and really represent. It's more than just us, it's other people pushing it forward as well, which is awesome. In terms of international expansion, we do ship internationally from our website, but we haven't really expanded to retail around the world. And one of the things that's holding us back there is our lack of support for Chinese, Japanese, and Korean character sets. And so that's something that we got to do. It's something that we're working on and we just have to accomplish. And after that gets done, then you'll probably see Pebble expand a little bit more out into the world.
And that's a considerable engineering project, right? Do you support Unicode right now?
Yeah, we support Unicode. It's some work that we're working on.
All right, let's see. I see a question right here.
Brent with Accenture. You talked a lot about consumer use cases. Are there any enterprise use cases that either real or hypothetical that you're excited about for smartwatches?
I'm excited that it's an open platform that people can hack on and at some points not even tell us what they're doing with it. I think there's I'm sure there's a couple Pebbles at anything from consulting firms to three-letter agencies that are using them. And we don't even have to know. I mean, people could make apps and just use them amongst their enterprises. I know that there's a lot of people that are looking for Pebble to be used at conferences, as schedulers and reminders and kind of like custom scheduled person. I think access control is something really interesting on Pebble. Authentication, there's quite a few authenticator apps that show 8-digit codes on your wrist when you're logging in. That's cool. Presence indicators. With BTLE on Pebble, you can practically act as an indicator of who that person is. Like security is something you know and something you have, and something on your wrist is definitely something that you have. But I'd be keen to chat about it. We have a legion of business guys that are totally keen on hacking this kind of stuff. There's some people in the front.
Yeah.
All right, and then we've got a question for Twitter, and then we'll have the last one.
I'm with Movidius, a vision chip company, and I wanted to ask what your thoughts are on vision. It's a display, but what about camera sensors? Camera sensors. They have any use or not?
What is our vision on that?
I know Pebble controls cameras, but
Yeah.
there's not a camera in the hardware.
It's true, and I think it's kind of a testament to the fact that we look at the power of connecting to other devices more than the idea that Pebble has to do everything itself. I think that there's plenty of really good cameras in your life, probably a lot of your chipsets in other amazing products that you're probably carrying around today. I think that, given the right technology, it's something that we might do, but it's probably just one of a laundry list of things that we could put in the watch that we haven't yet. Mainly because we think, like I said, that there's just other products that do it better that we can potentially work with.
Let's see, a question from Twitter from Jennifer Shanks. She wants to know what you're doing to deal with notification overload.
It's a good question. I mentioned before that not everyone uses their Pebble the same way. A lot of people just use it for very particular notifications. If you're on iOS and you use an app called Couple, which is a social network for two, then Pebble becomes this really cool, intimate connection with your partner where you may not get other notifications from the people sent to your watch, but you will when you get a notification from your spouse or your partner or something like that. So I think there's a lot of creative ways. I think that my personal view is that technology shouldn't really change your own personal habits, and it should, in fact, just mesh into the life that you already happen to live very nicely in a lot of cases. And so it's up to us, this is a job that's not finished at all, but to offer the customizability and the options for people to kind of like craft their own notification existence around what they actually care about. And then it becomes better. Like even though there are a lot of notifications that come through on your phone, every time that I scroll down the top bar of my Android I see just a billion notifications of all kinds of stuff. But when I get an important one, I see it on my wrist, and I can immediately consume it and see it and see what's going on.
So we'll need to craft our kind of notifications, which right now that feels like, to me, it feels like a bit of an imposition to figure out the settings. Will Pebble one day be able to figure out what notifications to show us?
I think context is really key. So there's different notification types that are important to you at different times in the day, different times of your life, different places that you're at. And I think one of the things that we'll be working on, that we are working on, is figuring out how context can help inform which apps and which notifications end up showing up on your watch. Because at the end of the day, we want the watch to be the most useful experience for you at that given time, at that given place. Basically, for the current situation, your watch has to be awesome. And that task is not done. It's an ongoing task, but it's something that we're working really hard on.
Let's see, and I think we'll take one more question. So,
what have been the advantages and disadvantages of working with the e-ink display? Do you plan to change that ever?
The advantages and disadvantages of working with the e-ink display.
So we don't actually have an e-ink display. Ink is a brand name. It's the same technology that's used on Kindles. We have an e-paper display. It's actually a super low power LCD that maintains 1 bit of memory behind each pixel, so it can maintain the state of the screen of very small microamps of power. It's, I think, got that best of both worlds set up where you can have a fast refresh rate, like an LCD, you can go up to 30 plus frames per second, but at the same time, it just uses an immensely small amount of power. So when you look down at your watch, at least it's showing notifications and it's showing the time all the time. You don't have to press a button, flick your wrist or something to get the watch to show the time. I really like that. I think customers really like that, and it's something that we're quite proud of.
So I think, unfortunately, we're out of time.
But I'll be hanging out. So.
Yeah, Eric will be hanging out if you have more questions for him. I think some of the takeaways are you really have to balance and make choices. It's battery life versus.
Yeah, and it's even more so when you're on someone's body like this.
It's a series of trade-offs that we're discovering in this wearable. All right, Eric, thank you so much.